Welcome to another episode of This Is Why I Don't Vote podcast. Episode number 8. Your safe space to discuss sports, politics, social issues, and even religion, where we will take it all very seriously, but not too seriously. And yes, dear listener, this week it is truly a safe space here at This Is Why I Don't Vote podcast, for we will take on many a controversial topic, including the Taylor Hawkins death and this nonsensical conspiracy theory about him getting the COVID-19 vaccine and that being the cause of his untimely passing. We will also discuss Tesla and its founder, Elon Musk, and my personal disappointment in both the company and the man. And yes, the slap heard round the world. Will Smith slapping Chris Rock, and it goes to show you that Hollywood is nothing more than a wealthy, well-dressed trailer park. Let's not waste any time.
Act 1, Oh Fun, More Conspiracy Theories.
As you know, dear listener, I publish this podcast on Saturdays. Saturday, March 26th, I publish episode 7 of this very podcast, and I go on to the Twitter. Now, I don't like the Twitter. I try to avoid the Twitter. I am promoting a product. I have been advised that this product is best promoted on the Twitter. I use the Twitter to promote this podcast. I was on the Twitter promoting the podcast when I was notified that Taylor Hawkins, the drummer for the Foo Fighters, had passed away at the early age of 50. And I was disheartened by this. I am a fan of the band. I'm a fan of Dave Grohl. Taylor Hawkins had also done some side projects that I was interested in. He is a huge, and I hate to even have to qualify this, and I'm not going to edit it, he was a huge Rush fan, and he had a prominent role to play in not only a couple of the Rush documentaries, but he and Dave Grohl introduced Rush into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I, being a huge Rush fan as well, appreciated Taylor. I appreciated his musicianship, and I appreciated him as a person. It was with much despair that I read that he had died at the age of 50. Naturally, I was curious as to what happened. How did Taylor Hawkins pass away? I was disheartened. I wanted to try to find some rationale in this disheartening news, in this dark news. Like all of us, when we enter this darkness, despondency, the simple unknown, we're looking for clarity. We're looking for reason. We're looking for control. So I'm looking for reason. I'm looking for a rationale as to why Taylor Hawkins passed away. And this was a fool's errand to do so on the Twitter. As we've discussed, Twitter is a shithole. I unknowingly subjected myself to that shithole. What I found myself in within a few simple keystrokes was a debate over whether or not Taylor Hawkins had died from getting the COVID-19 vaccine. There was a significant population of posters speculating that Taylor Hawkins had died because he had gotten the COVID-19 vaccine. And I'm here to discuss what is our need for a sense of control in a time of despondency, darkness, when we have approached or we are neck deep in the unknown. I have talked about it in other episodes, but I believe that this is a great example of how desperate we are as human beings to have some sense of control in what is very often, or what seems like very often, a chaotic, imbalanced, unpredictable world. First and foremost, I do not believe that this desire for control and how it manifests in people is a new phenomenon. I've said this over and over again. I will repeat it over and over again. Social media is a window into who we are, not who we are in this moment. It is not as if social media transformed us into something that we were once not, and now we are. This is simply a window into who we are. This is who people were in 1979. This is who people were in 1949. This is who people were in 1856. This is who people were in 1756. We haven't evolved as much as we think we have. The technology has evolved, but we as people have not evolved. We simply want to be able to exercise some level of control in what is an uncontrollable, unpredictable world. These types of conspiracy theories that the COVID-19 vaccine is going to kill you, these types of conspiracy theories are people who feel like they have no control exercising a measure of control. As I stated in the podcast numerous times last season, conspiracy theories in and of themselves are exercises in control. The world is an unpredictable place. It is chaotic. We cannot accept as much. Human beings have to be able to figure everything out because, frankly, we're all a bunch of geniuses, right? We have this computer in our minds that's better than any machine that's ever been created, where we can gather all of this data and we can predict the future, and we do so with an amazing level of precision. Therefore, anything that happens, we can figure it out, and we can figure it out by way of a series of events that's being what? Hidden from us. Oh, the truth is being withheld. It's all very simple. It's all very linear. It's like a mathematical formula where many of the variables are being hidden, and all we have to do is put together those pieces. We've got it all figured out. The reality of our lives, of this heavy plane of existence, is simple. There is no control. The myth of control is an illusion. Many of our thoughts and emotions and actions come from this wall that we've built that we call a psyche, all of the experiences that we've had over the course of our lives, many of which we don't realize are actually influencing our thoughts, emotions, and actions. Sadly, rather than self-assess, identify some of these long-existing, long-held, trapped emotions and thoughts and feelings based on past experiences, rather than try to clear them, rather than try to work through them, we allow them to build this wall that we call ourselves. And we do what? We allow these new experiences to then come into this old pattern of existence, old pattern of energy, and we say, we are going to bend these new experiences to fit into the four walls that we've built. We will bend reality to our belief system. That, for all intents and purposes, is what a conspiracy theory is. I will bend the reality of any situation, of any occurrence, of any experience. I will bend it to my belief system. And I will not let go of either my belief system, which is often based on traumatic past experiences, emotions, thoughts, and I will not let go of how those past experiences, those past thoughts, those past emotions, I will not let go of how I bend this new experience, this new occurrence, into this twisted, incongruent reality. My initial reaction when I saw this quote-unquote debate on Twitter about whether or not Taylor Hawkins had died from having taken the COVID-19 vaccine, my first reaction was in my ego. Oh, these people are fucking idiots. And just like everybody else who was reacting to that entire thread of tweets, they were getting into this vibration of anger and frustration. And I had to look at it from below instead of above, getting out of my judgment and trying to identify with what these people were doing. And it's sad. It's a sad state to live in where you have so tied yourself to a belief that the COVID vaccine could kill people in an untimely way, people who otherwise would have lived, that this vaccine is killing people prematurely. You now believe that anyone that dies in what you believe is a premature age, that person died from the COVID vaccine. That's immediately where it appears tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, it appears that that's where their heads are going. Anytime that they see someone die in what they feel like is a premature age, they're going to blame it on the COVID vaccine. That is a pathetic way to look at this situation. That is a pathetic way to live your life. It is truly sad. I'm no longer angry. I don't have any anger in me over the fact that this was proffered as a potential cause for Taylor Hawkins' death, that he took the COVID vaccine and it caused him to die prematurely. I feel sorry for the types of people who fervently believe that that is a possibility or that it is true. These people are so desperate for some measure of control in their lives that they would stoop to the point of taking anyone's death and attributing it to whether or not they got the vaccine. Not for a second reflecting on the fact that this person did die prematurely. Dying at 50 is pretty young. That this person had a family. That there are a number of people affected by this death. That the first inclination isn't to go there. The first inclination is to use this as an opportunity to try to desperately grab at some control in your own life and believe that it was attributed to something that you've already accepted as true, which has no foundation in reality. That how little happiness these people must feel, that how much desperation these people must have to live with, the fear and the anxiety and the judgment that they must live with on a daily basis, where they could buy into such an outrageous and laughable conspiracy theory and then adopt it as sacrosanct, as a part of who they are. So much so that they'd be willing to go out into what is now the 21st century public forum, Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, and volunteer as much and fervently debate anyone who disagreed with them. On my part, it makes me now question all the things that I do in my life to exercise this level of control. Am I that desperate as well? Are these people not somehow reflecting a part of me? Where is it in my life that I feel like I have no exercise, no dominion, no power? What false construct have I built and then forced facts or situations or occurrences to bend to my reality so that I can keep the four walls of my own psyche firmly held, not challenged, and I'll lash out, I'll strike out, I'll fervently defend that position to the death. For sake of timing, this podcast episode will not come out until April 2nd. So this won't be a timely commentary or reflection on what happened. But I feel so compelled to speak to it because I went through this cycle within myself over the course of, I'm looking at the clock, 4 or 5 hours. Although I've made proclamations in the earlier episodes of season 2 of this podcast about how I wanted to change my tone and my presentation, I was fully ready to do a podcast segment which amounted to nothing more than a 10 or 15 minute tantrum about how these people are dim-witted fucktards and they really are bringing down the collective IQ of the human race. And then I realized that's your ego. That's you sitting in judgment, looking above instead of below the situation. And then looking below, I realized, wow, how desperate, how pathetic to exercise this level of control in your life by believing in something, again, that has no foundation in reality, and then going out and instead of, in these times of tragedy when people are dying, trying to help collectively mourn for the loss, pointing your finger at other people and saying, see, this is what happens when you do X, Y, or Z. See, this is proof positive that I was right. It brings me to my final point. Do we want to be happy? Do we want to be content in our lives? Or do we want to be right? I, for my part, particularly during the first season of this podcast, I see myself as just wanting to be right. I presented myself as someone who simply wanted to be right at all costs. Now, I could care less about being right. I want to be happy. And I know that my happiness is not going to be derived from some exercise of control, particularly over an issue such as the COVID virus, the COVID vaccine, our politicians, our public health officials' response to it. I'm not going to derive any level of happiness in dwelling on how that all played out, on dwelling on what the future is with regard to the COVID virus, the vaccines, politicians, or public health officials' response thereto. It is an unpredictable, chaotic, unknown world. And frankly, dear listener, I wouldn't have it any other way. How exciting would our lives be if it were so predictable where we could go out and by way of an exercise of control in our thought or our emotions or in our actions, control everything that happened in our reality. That's not me. Like I said to you numerous times last season, like I will repeat numerous times this season, I don't eat at McDonald's. I'm not going to a McDonald's in Phoenix, Arizona, or a McDonald's in Spokane, Washington, or a McDonald's in Knoxville, Tennessee, or a McDonald's in Madison, Wisconsin. It's all the same crap. I'm not going to shop at Walmart. I don't want my human experience to be repeatable, to be mass-produced. Let's welcome the opportunity to grow, to solve problems, to overcome obstacles, rather than be so entrenched in, again, specific to this podcast segment, specific to the conspiracy theories around the vaccine, the COVID vaccine, to be so entrenched in a reality that has no foundation in the truth, and to bend everything then that happens from the time that you adopt this reality, bend it to what you have as your will, which is this will in fear, this will in insecurity, this will in trying to avoid the unknown. Break free. Break the chains of it. Realize that you may be right, but you will only be right in your own mind, and you'll never be happy.
Act 2, The Art of Disappointment, Tesla Edition.
I did a 28, 30-minute piece on Elon Musk and Tesla. Finished it, took a step back. I think it was 48 hours I gave it. Edited the entire segment, reflected on it, and scrapped the whole thing. Couldn't use it. Couldn't publish it. A part of me wanted to publish it simply because I finished it. I started, I went through it, I finished it, I wanted to publish it. But it was too much in the vein of what I was doing last season on the podcast and not in the spirit of what I'm trying to do this season in the podcast. What do I mean by that? What am I trying to do? Think greater than my current environment. See things from below and not above. And the piece, specific to Elon Musk himself, was extremely judgmental. Even with reference to Tesla, the piece was judgmental. I contemplated releasing it as some sort of extra or exclusive content on Patreon, but considering I only have one patron, That seemed like more work than necessary. See what you're missing out on, dear listener? The rantings and ravings of one anonymous podcaster? Anyway, specific to this segment, why was I so judgmental? After listening to this podcast segment, after having put all that time and effort into it, I had to revisit why I had gotten to the point where I could rant and rave for 28 or 30 minutes about Elon Musk and Tesla. And then it became clear. When Tesla opened up operations, I was a big fan. I was a proponent of what they were doing. First and foremost, because Tesla was taking on the big three automakers, which meant that they were taking on one of the largest, most powerful industries in the world. Second, although we seem to love it in this country, what is it about fossil fuels that we're so enamored with? Oil in particular. It's basically a 16th century technology. It marries us to some of the most nefarious actors on planet Earth. Creating an alternative resource, particularly in the automotive industry, was very attractive to me. Finally, Elon Musk. I'm no Elon fanboy, nor was I ever. But if someone comes out and says, I'm going to do this in spite of all the odds, in the face of a monolithic and, in their own right, nefarious group of actors, and I'm going to do so with my own money. I'm going to start this enterprise against all the odds, against a nefarious group of actors, and I'm going to gamble on myself. I'm going to invest my own money. Well, I find that to be the American dream. We all want to root for the little guy that's going to bet on himself, that's going to take on insurmountable odds, that's going to have to overcome a group of very powerful, very well-connected, politically savvy actors who are going to be conspiring to sabotage that person all along the way. That's the quintessential American success story. Coming into a market that is demanding of a product, investing your own time and money and energy into creating that product, then taking that product to market in the face of opposition, whether that be other market actors, whether that be the government itself. This is the quintessential American success story. So how was it then that I could go on for half an hour deriding Elon Musk, deriding Tesla? It was in my disappointment. I was disappointed in Elon Musk. I was disappointed in Tesla. This was someone that I actually had a fair amount of respect for. This is someone that I was rooting for. And yet here I am in the year 2022, and I can go on a 30-minute rant about the failings of Tesla as a company and the individual failings of Elon Musk as a person. Now, who am I to judge either? No one. And I really could not sit with the fact that I had leaned into that judgment to the degree that I did. But I can talk about my disappointment, and I can talk about what it is specifically about Tesla and about Elon Musk that has so disappointed me. I am not in the market for a new car. In fact, it's a terrible time to be in the market for a new car, given inflation, given all the scarcity, but I am not in the market for a new car. Having said that, when I am in the market for a new car, I had planned on buying a Tesla. I've said it on the podcast before. I will say it again. You put your money where your mouth is. If you believe in something, you support it with your dollars. Otherwise, it's just lip service. You really don't believe in it to the extent that you say you do. Over the course of the last 8 to 12 months, my attitude has changed. I am still, in my own mind, in the electric car market. My next car will be an electric car, not a hybrid, but an electric car. I do not believe that I will be purchasing a Tesla. Why is this? First and foremost, this relationship with China. Looking at the situation with Tesla and China from below, not above, let's contemplate where that company has been. It is a successful auto manufacturer only in being able to put cars on the road. They've never turned a profit. Tesla has never turned a profit. Tesla has cleverly used energy swaps, emission swaps, to generate revenue on its books. But the simple, I build a car, I sell a car, I make money, they hadn't done any of that. Over the course of the last 2 years, they have done that. Tesla has turned a profit in the auto manufacturing element. When this news came out, I was excited. But conveniently, Tesla does not release the numbers with regard to the different markets. So we don't know how much money Tesla made in North America selling its cars. We don't know how much money Tesla made in Europe selling its cars. And we don't know how much money Tesla made in China selling its cars. Now, Tesla has admitted that its largest vehicle export hub is the manufacturer in China. Now, dear listener, whether it is some 150-year-old monolithic auto manufacturer or some bright, progressive, energetic new startup, media doublespeak is all the same. If you are unwilling to disclose where you make your money in different markets and you only admit, well, our largest manufacturing export hub happens to be in this market, you are indicating, at least to me, that's where you're making your money. Ipso facto, Tesla is making its money in the Chinese auto market. Tesla has leveraged its financial success, given that it hadn't turned a profit in all of these years. It has leveraged its financial success with its relationship with China, which means its relationship with the Chinese Communist government. Therein lies my disappointment. And I didn't want to admit to myself that it was disappointment. I wanted it to be that I was objectively looking at the situation and that I had some kind of insight. But the fact of the matter is, I'm disappointed that the company, A, has not been able to turn a profit in the North American market or in the European market, and B, that in order to meet these short-term, these quarterly fiscal goals, Tesla had to leverage itself by going into the Chinese market. What does it mean to go into the Chinese market, to leverage oneself in the Chinese market? Frankly, the Chinese Communist government does not play fair. As we know from all of the other American companies that have gone into China, you have a mirror or contemporary company that is set up that follows you along. You are allowed to sell in the marketplace through this mirror or contemporary company. And what all these other American companies come back and say is the Chinese government, through these contemporary companies, or simply through espionage, stole all of our proprietary information, stole all of our proprietary processes. So we went into the market with good intentions. We just wanted to serve this new market base, these Chinese customers. And we had to set up with this contemporary company, and then they stole everything from us, and then they ran us out of the market. How did they run you out of the market? Well, says American company that comes back to the North American continent with their tail between their legs, they created this contemporary Chinese company. They created, with our proprietary information, with our proprietary technology, with our proprietary processes, they created an equivalent, if not superior, product. Then they sold it to the same Chinese customers, and they sold it for a lower price. They have just as good a product, if not better, selling it at a lower price, using our technology. What do you think happens? Obviously, the Chinese consumer is no different than the European consumer or the North American consumer. If they can get a better product for a cheaper price, that's what they're going to buy. Then an American company slowly gets squeezed out of the market, and because they've leveraged themselves so heavily in China, they come back to North America damn near bankrupt. This is what so disappoints me about Tesla's relationship with China. Not only do I have problems with any American company getting so tightly tied with a communist government, it is problematic that you're going to, for simply short-term gain, to meet quarterly profit goals, to meet annual profit goals, leverage your financial stability and the future of your entire company by marrying into the communist market, the Chinese government's market. They're not going to let you run your business in that country, in that market, for decades on end, and have the two entities live happily ever after. The Chinese Communist government is going to, quote unquote, win in the end. And what that win means is, specifically for Tesla, there will be a competitive, if not a better, electric car in the Chinese market, utilizing many of the technologies pioneered by Tesla, and it will be a cheaper alternative, and Tesla will be run out of the market. So for someone who was rooting for Tesla to succeed, not necessarily Elon Musk, but for Tesla to succeed, it is troubling that Tesla has married itself and leveraged itself to the Chinese Communist government because they don't play fair. And they are playing a long game where a number of American companies are not. Again, I cannot stress this enough. If you are going to leverage your long-term security for a quarterly profit statement, and you're doing so by trying to market a product in China to get into the Chinese market, you are going to get what's coming to you. Maybe it's 8 quarters, maybe it's 12 quarters, maybe it's 16 quarters. But in a short 2 to 3 years, you will find yourself competing, for all intents and purposes, against yourself. And to the extent that you are seeing your own technology come back to compete against you, it may even be better than what you had created, only because they stole what you created, or maybe closer to reality, you gave it to them in order to get access to the Chinese market, and they just improved upon it. They didn't have all the effort and energy required to create something for nothing. They just had to improve upon what you created. On top of that, I was perplexed. That's probably the best word. I was perplexed, if not offended, by the fact that Tesla would open up a dealership in Xinjiang in the midst of all the controversy with the Chinese Communist government interning, and that's the mildest term you can use. You can call it a camp, you can call it whatever you want. The mildest term you could use is interning the Uyghur population because of A, religion, and B, their ethnic background. It rings hollow to me that Elon Musk is somehow a progressive or a pioneer or is trying to save the world in any capacity, when the company that he founds and still leads opens up a dealership for his product in a province in China where they are interning human beings based on religion and their ethnicity. This is the issue that I've had with a number of different luminaries who are out there trying to save the world, and one that comes to mind is Bill Gates. You look at these folks and you think to yourself, do they really want to save the world? Or do they simply want the fame and the credit and the notoriety that goes with people attributing to them this moniker of savior of the world? And that leads me to Elon Musk. Again, I'm not a fanboy. I don't look up to Elon Musk. I wouldn't take any of his advice. But I put a lot of stock in someone saying, I'm going to revolutionize a market. I'm going to do so against insurmountable odds. I'm going to do so in opposition to forces that are actively trying to sabotage me. And I'm going to do so with my own money. I'm not borrowing money. I'm not trying to raise money. I'm starting this with my own money. Now, to the extent that anyone does want to invest, obviously I'll take it. But how am I going to demonstrate my dedication to this project? I'm going to put $100, $200, $500 million of my own money in it. That to me is respectable. And I then became attached to this image that I had of Elon Musk. And that is my own fault. And I admit as much because I believe we as a people, and I don't mean as an American people or North American people or any kind of region, any kind of religion, age, race, it doesn't matter. We all do this. We create an image of a person, and then we marry ourselves to that image, and generally that image, particularly when it is a public persona, when it is someone in the public spotlight, that image is routinely trounced upon, tarnished by whom? By the very person whose image we have created. We are setting ourselves up for this anger, this frustration, this disappointment, and I set myself up. Over the course of the last 8 to 12 months, the things that I've heard about Musk, the tantrums, all of the self-effacing tweets, and I want to punch myself in the face for even having to say that, for having to reference Twitter. But that's where the new public forum is, Twitter. And so Elon Musk comes on after the presidential address, the State of the Union address, and throws a tantrum because the President Biden, doesn't mention Tesla in his address. Think about that. This is the President of the United States, the leader of the free world, making an address which is an address to the entire American people, and in reality, the entire world. The entire world takes notice of the State of the Union address by the President of the United States. And here is a private entrepreneur, an individual business owner, throwing a tantrum that the company that he started was not mentioned in the address. Fast forward, not 60 days later, Elon Musk tweets that he would fight Vladimir Putin for the fate of Ukraine. Out of that 28 to 30 minute rant that I had, 10 minutes of that rant was specific to that one tweet. The tweet that Elon Musk would fight Vladimir Putin for the fate of Ukraine. I saw a number of different quote unquote hot takes on that tweet, but none of them actually embraced the reality of what Elon Musk was saying in that tweet. If in fact that fight took place, Vladimir Putin would beat Elon Musk to death. That's the plain and simple truth of it. And because that fight will never take place, Elon could make such a ridiculous overture to the leader of a foreign country that had invaded another first world country. After reflecting on my own piece, on the podcast segment that I did, my own rant, I had to feel into what is this disappointment? What is this frustration? Why are you in this vibration? What is it about what you believed Elon to be, the kind of person he was? What is it that you are feeling now after he would tweet something like that? And the fact of the matter is, he's a child. This is the type of insecurity that you would find in an adolescent. And I don't mean in a 12-year-old. I mean in a 6-year-old. I mean in a 5-year-old. Where you're walking down the grocery aisle with that little person and they just scream. They just start screaming because Nothing is focused on them at that moment, and they're exercising their power in the dynamic that is the relationship between parent and child. The world is burning down, and Elon Musk needs some attention. Here is a man that vocally took on the auto industry and introduced an electric vehicle that people were clamoring for. So we know that he had to go through significant adversity. We know that he had to go through all of the barbs from the public, from the media, from politicians, from the other automakers. I imagined this would be someone that had thicker skin. Now, granted, anyone who starts a company like Elon Musk did, they have to have A, some insecurity, but B, some megalomania. You have to think yourself bigger than your circumstances to be able to take on such a monumental task. There's nothing wrong with that. He was the man for the moment. My disappointment is that there isn't any wisdom, there isn't any self-awareness in the fact that the world is not revolving around the electric vehicle and revolving around Elon Musk. No sooner do I decide to do this segment than the Washington Post comes out with an article. And again, I'm not a big fan of the Washington Post, but I believe the nature of this story, given everything else I've heard about Tesla and Elon Musk, that the National Highway Transportation Safety Board has had numerous issues with Tesla as a company and Elon Musk in particular, and that although I don't really care about the temper tantrum side of the story, the Tesla is a pretty unreliable piece of shit. In researching the acquisition of a Tesla, I was surprised as a consumer that the warranty for the car was so bad. It does not have a good warranty. Compared to the other auto manufacturers, it's probably the worst warranty in the industry. I excused as much, thinking simply, well, the reason why they can't have as robust a warranty as these well-established older auto manufacturers is because they're not well-established and they're not older. Part of the compromise that you're making with a brand new automaker is they can't offer the same type of extended warranties that a more established automaker would. It appears that one of the reasons why Tesla does not offer a more robust warranty is because they know that they'd be covering a ton of different types of issues with that automobile, and that many of the issues that they do have, they just slide under the rug. They just put out these system updates, if you will, almost like you do for your computer or any of your other devices, and it takes care of all these different problems within the automobile, and many of the owners don't know, A, that this has actually happened, and B, the extent they were in jeopardy prior to that update being downloaded. So where do I fall on this piece? It's on me. I built Elon Musk and likely Tesla into something that Elon Musk wasn't, that Tesla wasn't. I understand that it takes a certain type of personality to do what Elon Musk did. And perhaps I should give him credit where credit is due. He broke open the electric car market. He made it a viable option for consumers all over the world. And that may be enough. I fret for the long-term security of that company if it is married to the Chinese Communist government. I am concerned about all of the Teslas on the road, considering that I wanted to buy one of them, given that they may be completely unreliable pieces of shit. I would highly recommend that you check out the WAPO story, the Washington Post story. One of the issues reminded me of the Ford Pinto, that if you recall, dear listener, and I know many of you do because you're old enough, that upon impact, the Ford Pinto gas tank would explode. And it became such an issue out in the marketplace, it was a 1970s, if not 1980s, quote-unquote, meme. This was in cartoons. It was in television shows. It was in movies. Popular culture was aware that Pintos blew up in what could be minor collisions because of the positioning of the gas tank. In the Washington Post story, it appears that the National Highway Transportation Safety Board is citing Tesla routinely for batteries exploding in car accidents. That the batteries are prone to fire in an accident. At least Ford can say, look, this was our economy model. This was the cheapest damn car we were putting out. Tesla's charging $100,000 for these things. No, but I digress. I'm getting back into my ego. I am the one who has to take responsibility for building somebody up and then being disappointed and then wanting to do what? To take it out on them. Instead of looking at it from the perspective of you shouldn't be building people up into something that they're not. You shouldn't be attached to this illusion of a person that you have created. I wanted to lash out at that person for not being who I thought that they would be. I wanted to condemn the company for not being the type of company that I wanted it to be. The lesson is not Elon's to learn, it's not Tesla's to learn, it's mine to learn. No matter what happens to Tesla, no matter its future, no matter what happens to Elon Musk, no matter his future, the legacy of breaking open the automotive market for the electric vehicle, that alone is enough to say Elon Musk changed the world. I should not have any other expectation or attachment to him or his company, and if I do, it's at my own peril. The discord and dysregulation will originate within me.
Act 3. Hollywood is a well-dressed, wealthy trailer park.
I have felt into it, dear listener. I've looked at it from below instead of from above, and it's come through quite clearly to me. Hollywood is a well-dressed trailer park. Hollywood is simply a trailer park with money. That this reality, that this truth came through in Hollywood's premier show, the Academy Awards, the Academy holding itself out as some high standard in film, in theater, in art. And what is it really? Hollywood's really a bunch of unsophisticated people who are really good at playing make-believe, at pretending to be other people, and doing so with very limited skill sets, because most of the movies now are really just CGI. It's a computer that's actually making the film, that's making this art. What is truly paradoxical about Hollywood is all of the lecture much, right? From the studios to the actors and actresses, all of the lecture about things that we should do, how society should change. Imagine if the owners of McDonald's, imagine if the owners of Jack in the Boxes, or Wendy's, or Burger King's, imagine if all of the franchisees, all of the different corporate entities, people came out and they started lecturing the public about their dietary habits, about their exercise habits, the things that they eat, the things that they do. Stop living such a sedentary lifestyle. Change your diet. Start exercising. When you look at the quality of the movies that are being put out by Hollywood and the type of people now that will gravitate towards the Hollywood blockbuster, this is not the crowd that you go and lecture about how they interpret the political world, the social world, the economic world. Guy goes into a McDonald's 2, 3, 4 times a week. That's not the person that you lecture about dietary habits and you try to impart the merits of an exercise regimen. You know what you're getting. Hollywood, paradoxically, puts out trash and continues to rake in a lot of money putting out that trash, and then feels justified by way of those profits in lecturing the entire population with regard to political issues or social issues or economic issues. Jesus said it quite simply, "Those without sin cast the first stone." Well, no one really spread the word of Jesus around to the trailer park with money. I guess the Church of Scientology has seen to that. That this trailer park mentality bled into the academy's, the industry's premier or marquee event, it's no surprise to me. Me loves me some Lilo. I was always a big Lindsay Lohan fan. If you wanted to have a fantasy girl, Lindsay Lohan was your actress. You wanted to go out and have a fun time, bring along Lilo. Hey, where's the party at? Lilo knows, or Lilo will start the party. Hey, there's a party in the hills. How are we going to get there? Don't worry, Lilo will go out and steal a car. Wow, we don't have anything to bring to the party. Don't worry about it. Lilo's always got some yayo in her back pocket. Hey, these modern times, this modern day life has got me down. How am I going to take out my frustrations? Where am I going to vent my anger? Don't worry, Lilo's got that TV over her head. She's going to smash it onto the ground. Give her a hand. From the outside, people will say, well, Hollywood's a corrupting place. You know, they get this fame and then they get the money and there's no supervision. We never really look at the types of people that gravitate towards Hollywood in the first place. There isn't a documentary, there isn't a movie about all the people that went to Hollywood and found out what it was really about and then left on their own accord. We look at those people and we say, oh, well, they couldn't take it. They had to run back home with their tail between their legs. Look, maybe there's some truth to that, but maybe there's also some truth to having some dignity and self-respect and that not being two things that you can have to make it in Hollywood. Poor Britney Spears. Poor Kim Kardashian and Pete Davidson and Kanye West. Most of these people invite all of this attention into their lives in order to promote themselves, to promote their movies, and yet when anything negative comes around, they throw temper tantrums. They look like they have never seen anything so egregious and outrageous as the people following them around to ask them these asinine questions about their personal lives. Yet this is what they court every single day. What you saw between Chris Rock and Will Smith was no different than something that you couldn't have seen 10 years ago on TLC during an episode of Honey Boo Boo. And for his part, I feel sorry for Will Smith because I see him, I feel him as an emasculated man. This is a man who really doesn't know who he's supposed to be or what he's supposed to be about. After seeing what he did, in light of the fact that he was laughing throughout the course of the Academy Awards, after seeing what he did to Chris Rock, trying to recapture, trying to grab onto, to hold on to some level of manhood, and then crying at the podium after having won the Academy Award for Best Actor, crying in what I felt like was a very undignified way, and making some sort of excuse that he was being called to protect people he has no familial relationship with, to protect people who is he to protect them? And what manner of protection does he offer them? He goes out and he slaps Chris Rock in the face for making a joke? That's what he's being called to do? This is the stuff of 1970s country music songs. Man emasculated by woman goes out and has to commit violent acts in order to regain some level of manhood. Well-dressed, high-priced trailer park. And the kind of people that are going out and saying, well, he had to protect his woman. He had to stand up. This is where we live today, dear listener. This is where we live today, where dignity and self-respect are reduced to, I have to go out because I am so insecure, and I have to demonstrate my dignity and my self-respect through violent acts against someone else. That'll show them. Quite simply, these are people who don't have any self-love or self-esteem or any dignity, and they are going out into the world. They're going outside of themselves to try to claim it as if that is the way that they'll be able to regain self-love, self-esteem, dignity. It's not out there, dear listener. It's inside of you. You either have it or you don't. And you would think, and I mean to say that, not feel, but you would think, in analyzing Will Smith's life, with all of the money and all the now accolades, he's an Academy Award winner for Best Actor, mind you. You would think that he would be fulfilled. Clearly, none of the money, none of the fame, and none of the accolades can fill that hole within any of us if we don't have self-love, if we don't have self-esteem, we don't have self-respect, and we don't have dignity. No one's going to give it to us. It is ours to take, and we can all have it by simply giving it to ourselves. This is Why Don't Vote, a podcast.